I notice sometimes it's actually start, even though it just tells me that my live is starting. But I wanted to take a second, reach out to some people that have been still reaching out to me as we're finding out more information about the weather in St. George, what to potentially wear when you're racing in cold weather. I've had to do it a few times, and it's actually really fun. So, cold weather, while it can seem intimidating, can actually mask a lot of mistakes with pacing. You can go a little too hard sometimes, and with nutrition. Yes, it requires a little extra calories in order for you to cool yourself because you're shivering, but because your body doesn't have to cool itself with through sweat, it's able to actually absorb more nutrition, which allows you, as long as it can absorb more nutrition, it allows you to put out a little more output. So that's exciting stuff. So try to reframe your brain for positive thoughts going into cold weather, but you still need to manage it. The trick is people have been asking me to include my athletes, just being honest, uh, will I be cold? The answer is I have no idea if you'll be cold. Some people run hot, some people run cold. I know that if it was my preference, I would sleep with the thermostat at 65, and my wife would sleep with the thermostat set at 85, and we would both be equally as comfortable. So you have to somewhat take inventory of if you generally run hot or you generally run cold. It's impossible for someone to tell you if you'll be hot or cold. You have to kind of figure that out a little bit. I always tell people one of the hardest things with coaching is sometimes you have to teach people effectively what hungry feels like. And we all know what hungry feels like. We all know what hungry feels like to ourselves. But if you had to explain to somebody else when they are hungry and what their feelings would be, it would be hard to get into all the little nuances. So putting that disclaimer aside, I decided, how can I attack this question? And I think we can all agree that we have levels of being cold wherever we find ourselves when those levels rise and fall. So I tried to come up with 5 levels, one being barely cold, 5 being you might be riding outside in the winter in Chicago, which I've done before too. So with 1, kind of cold, or you think it might be cold. I've seen a lot of races in the past. I don't think this will be one where people go. Ironman Florida is a good example where people will hear that it's going to be cold in the morning, and then the expo is totally sold out of anything cold weather gear. And then they do the swim, and it's really not a big deal, and they don't wear them because they've forgotten that they need them because by the time they've run to their bikes out of the swim, they're already warm enough that they don't feel like they need to wear whatever they've bought. Or you find the stuff littered on the side of the highway because people are too hot and they're trying desperately to get these things off of them because they're having a hard time staying cool. So if it's on that edge where you think it might be cold, cool, or it might not be, personally, I just suck it up. For better or worse, that's my level 1, is I just say, all right, I might be uncomfortable here for the first part of this race, but I trust that by the time I come off the bike, my extremities are going to have full functioning hands and feet, and I'll be fine. It doesn't sound like that's going to be the situation with St. George. It sounds like we're going beyond level 1. But level 2, for me, the most simplistic thing is arm warmers. And while those can be expensive, they can be worth their weight in gold if you really need them. And if you don't want to spend for arm warmers, like we've talked about on some of the previous lives, so one of the things you can go do is get something like a tube sock from Walmart or Target, or pick fill in the blank, or steal them out of your siblings or your spouse's drawer and cut the toes off, and then you can roll those up your sleeves, and then if it does get too hot, you can always roll them down. But arm warmers would be the first level up that I would do. That's level 2 for me. Level 3 for me might be like, okay, it's definitely going to be cold. It's definitely going to be cold the whole time, where I'm going to want some coverage for the entire race. Sorry, I'm going off my notes here if I'm looking down. So at that point, I've raced in short sleeve base layers. There's some fantastic ones out there. I used to wear Skin Fit a lot, and they were very good technical company, but they had some really thin base layers that were really good at keeping you warm. But also, if it did get too warm, you could unzip a little bit, and because they were thin, they didn't keep you too warm if you didn't need it. But it's just they always seem to work really well. I know other companies have some thin ones that worked really well too, like Under Armour has some, but then they also have some that are thick and might restrict movement. So I never really got into those, especially wearing them in the swim, because I would wear the base layer underneath my singlet. Again, knowing this is level 3 we're at, so we know that we're not going to ever be sorry that we have it for the whole day. And because it was thin, it would dry out really quick, and it wouldn't restrict my movement underneath the wetsuit as well too. I did have someone else reach out to me earlier saying that they've worn arm warmers underneath their wetsuit. I can't attest to what that would feel like. They claim that it wasn't a big deal for them, but I can't personally say that. But I can tell you that wearing the base layer underneath my singlet has never been to the thin one has never been where I have felt restricted. And if you do think that it is going to be too tight, one of the tricks is you can unzip your singlet so that the base layer is already on you, but you have your singlet unzipped, and then therefore you still have more range of motion, and you don't have to try to put the base layer on when you're wet, because I promise you, no matter how easy it goes on in training, when you're nervous and you're trying to move fast in transition and you're wet, it's going to roll up on you. So if you can wear it underneath. So I have the short base layer. I would definitely still have the arm warmers, right? Because we're taking everything from the previous level up with us. I'd probably have some fingerless gloves because I would want some hand warmth, but I would also want to make sure that I could, use some dexterity. And as long as my hands were fine, I would think my fingertips would be all right. I would definitely put socks on. So I would dry my feet coming out of transition. I would put socks on and do that on the bike. And I would consider putting toe covers, the neoprene toe covers at least, or the front part of the shoes on there. So that would be my level 3. My level 4. So I think a lot of people are going to kind of be between level 3 and 4 for St. George. And this also goes back to, it's not, and this is where it gets hard, how hard you plan on going too. So, you see a lot of like marathon runners, for example, running in snow, but in shorts because they're planning on going hard the whole time too. So there's lots of things going on because the bike also has the wind. So, but I think a lot of people will be right here between this level 3 and 4. So level 4, remember I still have the short sleeve base layer from level 3, the arm warmers, the socks, but I would probably put on full finger gloves at that point. I would definitely towel off coming out of transition. And I just mean I would pat my chest down, my core. I would try to help my kit dry by toweling it off as fast as I could. And remember, I was back and forth on what I would put an ear beanie on. A lot of the aero helmets don't have a lot of vents, so I do think I was on the fence with that. So I put potentially on there. But remember, once your aero helmet goes on, if it's not vented, I don't know if your head's going to be really cold. You'll have to kind of decide that one. But I would definitely think about putting on a tight-fitting cycling vest. And between level 3 and 4, that would probably be the biggest one. That would be the biggest change, because if I found myself too hot on the bike, I think I could deal with the full finger gloves. I think I could deal with the foot covers, but I might not want that vest the whole time. I think that I do because I'm stepping up to a level 4, but if I don't, I know that that's something, as long as it's tight fitting and it's a legit cycling vest, you might be able to put it in your kit pocket. And the other thing with a level 4 I might consider doing is, instead of wearing a short base layer, maybe wear a long sleeve base layer as well too. So growing up training and racing in Chicago, we got to deal with a lot of different seasons. So I had at my disposal a lot of these different various base layer lengths. If you're there and you don't, you'll have to make the best of it. But I used to look for like a Sports Authority or a Dick's Sporting Good or Walmart or Target or something like that. Those are good places that you can go. Probably you want to, and again, try to make it tight fitting, not like even a long run sleeve shirt, because that's more loose fitting. So you want something in that cycling base layer variety. Ideally not super thick, but at level 4 maybe you do want something a little more thick. I've just never swam in a thick one, full disclosure. So if you're not sure if you want to swim in a thick one, again, going back to toweling off, what I would do is I would roll my kit down under my wetsuit so that I would just have a bare torso, and I would then go do the swim and then towel off, put the base layer on, and then put the kit, and then pull my kit up over the warm, dry base layer. I know girls can't go bare torso, but maybe you can wear a sports bra or something like that, and then have the top part of your kit roll down, and then towel off, put on your dry base layer, and then pull your kit on top of that. At level 4, I would definitely do that. At level 5, I would go from the vest to the jacket. I would definitely have a head beanie on for sure, or an ear band, and I would have the full foot covers. So beyond that, unless you want to just sit this one out, there's not a lot more that you can do to do that stuff. But that is the order in which I would think about adding things based on my gradients of being too cold. You have to kind of decide how cold you get and what level of gradient you would want to do that at. But beyond that, there's not a lot of different things that you can do. I also said make sure that you give yourself a little time on the bike to warm up, get your bike legs going, get some blood flow to your extremity, and allow that to kind of even if you have a good warm up, you might just want to anticipate needing a little extra time to kind of get going. I hope this helps everyone. Again, good luck. I always tell people the ordinary ones that are like regular sunny days with no wind, they're fun. You can go fast, but you don't really remember that. These are the types of war stories that you'll tell for the next 10, 20 years about looking back on, oh, I can remember I did this one race and it was so cold and we were doing this or whatever. But these are the ones that like you'll have fun doing. Maybe not immediately, but you'll look back on and you'll be like, man, that was such an experience, and that's one that I'll put in the pocket. So good luck to everybody. And if you have any questions, you can DM me, and I'll be watching everybody race. Bye.